click and go live. I think we're live. I'm going to look on YouTube. I think we're live. It's supposed to go out to my Facebook. I really have no idea.
Wow. We're big time.
My Facebook. I really have no idea. All right, we're live.
Wow. Oh, wow.
All right. All right, let me check Facebook. See, this is what you do, like when you kind of have to your small shop here for anybody.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna. This is gonna be someone's job in like 3 weeks.
All right, perfect.
See, this is what you do.
It's on Facebook. Someone's already shared it. I mean, geez.
Wow. They must have notifications on for Caleb Steensma.
You know, people do. I am pretty big time.
You are, dude, and it's an honor to be a part of this.
I'm a big fish in a very, very small pond. One of the smallest in America, actually.
Yeah.
I remember. Before I start this, I'll start with this quick story because this is funny. Welcome to everybody who's joining here. I'm Caleb. I do the VOC stuff. Kind of wanted to change up some stuff, and I was like, hey, I think I want to do a live show, and then I'll cut it down throughout the week, and we'll talk about different topics. Want to bring people in. I have a cast of character friends that I know. I was like, I want to bring those in, so I have Trevor with me, Jerry. You know, I tell people all the time, like even in my house, like just the stuff that happens here, you can't believe it. And me and my sister have tried to film it, and it's like, oh, we're gonna film, and then I forget to film. And then we do film. Yeah. It's great. So I'm like, I have a cast of characters. Everybody knows Jonathan. We'll have him on a couple times. Jerry, you've never met him. He's a nutcase Michigan fan. Great. He is the typical Michigan fan that has nothing. There's no. He didn't go to school at Michigan. He just is a fan. That tells you right there. But like grew up in it. Dad has season tickets, end zone, like 7th row. Great people, right? Well, when it comes to Michigan, you can't like talk to them on like a civilian level. Great people other than that. Just don't bring that up and you'll live your life.
It's not like you went to school in East Lansing at all, Caleb. I can't tell. In case there was any worry here, to defend a man I've never met. It's not like you ever were Spartan in your past life.
Well, it's like I'm like the trifecta for most people that I grew up around because I'm a Notre Dame fan, and I also went to Michigan State, and I hate Michigan. I mean, with the trifecta, passion. With a passion.
The Southwestern Michigan trifecta.
Pretty much, like I like the people that grew up in this area that live 25 minutes from Notre Dame's campus and grew up a Michigan fan. I don't get it. Like, what is wrong?
Yeah.
Like, we're only like the greatest team of all time. But
I'm really here for the internal Southwest Michigan politics that I get to take part of, sitting in my St. Louis basement.
So a little backstory on everybody. I think everybody knows me and my life. Pretty much the majority of people that are gonna be watching this know Trevor. I mean, I saw Trevor yesterday. We had to go to a funeral, R.I.P. TT. And I told Trevor, I said, nobody does better in the demographic in our area from like 10 to 15 than you, because Trevor is also a teacher and a coach for school here in Cass. Yeah. So it's funny because you'll have like all these little kids come up to Trevor and it's like he's the Beatles at all these events. And they're like, oh, Coach Bruins. Mr. Bruins. It's like,
I am the 25, Trevor. But for the 10 to 15-year-olds.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, they're coming up to him. It's like he's got to like run to get in his car. It's ridiculous. And then Jerry, you did somewhat live in the area for 2 years. Hardcore, I'd say, within the area. You lived in South Bend, and then you grew up in Chicago, and now you're in the big city of St. Louis.
Wow. Jerry just loves cities with large murder rates.
Go big or go home. Come on.
Literally, it looks like we have one person watching. I have no idea who that is, but thank you. Yeah, it's on YouTube. Great. It's probably Jonathan, honestly. I texted him and told him I was doing this, and he was like, oh, okay, like I'll definitely watch after softball. I don't know if that was his softball league or somebody else's. Who knows?
He was our first topic of conversation.
Yeah, it's like Beetlejuice. He heard his name and he came. So the story I was first going to tell, it goes back to when I went up to East Lansing for school, as Jerry's already brought that up. Two of the funniest interactions I ever had with people, because I went to school with a lot of people from like Metro Detroit area. And I told them where I grew up and everything. And they were like, how small it was. And they're like, well, does your town have a stoplight? And I said, well, yeah, only one, but we do have one. Like, that counts.
Yeah, it's
and
a good one, too.
Looked at me. Yeah, it's a great one. I mean, it's once it gets past 11 o'clock, it's flashing yellow one way and you're good to go. But the funniest story, I still go back to this, is remember talking to somebody about like how like we have to go to Indiana to get like our groceries or like to have like life and actually do something. And she looked at me and she goes, do you have to pay a toll to go to Indiana? And I think the look that I gave her back was more of a weirder look than she gave me when I told her that. Because this was one of those parts of my life where I realized, oh, people didn't like live in the same area I lived, everybody I've ever met. Because to like us going to Michigan, Indiana, back and forth is nothing out of the ordinary. No. To her, it's like she never leaves the state of Michigan, never has in her life, really, unless they're going on vacation. I felt so bad because I just gave her the look of like, that was the dumbest question I've ever heard. But in all reality, it wasn't, because if you don't leave the state, you would never know.
Yeah, and there are a lot of toll roads in Indiana.
Yeah, that darn toll road that runs through South Bend is a mess.
I hate it.
Oh, God. Don't let me start about the toll road.
No, it's unbelievable to me that you have to pay money to travel around.
I think the funniest part about toll roads, and we're actually going to get into sports here, people, but I'm actually like, I'm trying to
sure,
is how like it's not even owned by the state of Indiana.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Like the Saudis, I think, own it.
The Saudis, dude?
It's like Jerry would know this. Jerry, like all the parking in downtown Chicago is not owned by the city of Chicago anymore either.
They sold it, I think, during the recession.
Yeah.
For foreign countries.
And I was like, watched a video on this and how like if the tolls are not paid, the state or the city has to then pay the company that owns it. So it's like Chicago's screwed money wise from just the parking.
This blows my mind. The Saudis. They have a parking monopoly.
Saudi Arabia.
And toll road.
Indiana toll road, Texas A&M football. You're welcome.
That's why Nick Saban no longer coaches anymore.
Dude, that blows my mind.
It's the little things, like who owns your road.
I never even thought. I thought I owned it, dude. Nope. Oh, this is my road the whole time.
Nope. You thought your taxes paid for this stuff. In all reality, it doesn't.
Saudi Arabians. We're just making them richer.
Yeah, it's like not like they only print $1 billion a day, anyways.
Yeah. They got a good gig there.
So we're live, but this is also, I think, just YouTube uploads it itself. I don't really know. I'm just doing this because I want to, not because it's gonna be great. First topic: LeBron versus Screamin' A. I think I can pull up the video or bring it into. It'd probably be a little lag. Okay, see, that's not even showing what it's supposed to be.
Well, I'm show one, baby.
Oh, there it goes. All right. So it's a little laggy because
we get the slow-mo view of it.
I've not got the Wi-Fi extender yet, which I didn't realize I needed. But so basically, this video is Screamin' A and LeBron James. Yeah, this is very slow-mo. It's like 30 seconds. But can I go back a little bit and then just pause it? Okay, I feel like that made it worse. Okay. So this is like my life. Okay, perfect. Can I pause it there?
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Yeah. We'll get these bugs figured out. It's a live show, everybody. Come on. I feel like I should like do something to distract people from how bad this show is, but it's
gonna be great. Don't worry.
So is the video playing or is it just that laggy that it looks like it's moving? All right. So if nobody's seen the video, LeBron James, aka Bronny's dad, saw Stephen A. Smith and verbally assaulted him on the side of the court the other night. And basically, it was all over Bronny and how Screamin' A has talked about him. And I think I'll say my few words and then I'll open it up to the public. I think that'll probably be the easiest way to do it here. Look, I understand that LeBron gets mad about this stuff as a parent. Like, I'm not a parent, but you want to protect your kid and blah, 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 blah. But when you keep shoving Bronny down everybody's throats like you have the last 2 years, people are going to get annoyed and have some things to say. You know, the kid went from averaging like 5 points a game at USC to getting drafted in the second round, which is fine. That happens. There's potential. NBA, crazier things have happened. But then he's on the opening night roster. Like, people are going to have some things to say. Like, it's just going to be a thing.
Do we know exactly what LeBron was referring to that Stephen A was saying about? I mean, I'm sure that there's a million things that Stephen A is saying.
I watched Stephen A's rebuttal, and basically he kind of played it up a little bit, and because I don't know if he knows what LeBron was talking about. I think just in general, because I think LeBron was like, keep my effing son's name. Like, he went Will Smith. Like, didn't slap him, but he went Will Smith.
Dude, if he would have smacked Stephen A, his head would have rolled off his body. I mean, just look. I love looking at these two standing next to each other.
Yeah.
And I bet Stephen A has to be horrified. That is a giant man.
No, he's not afraid of anything.
Yelling at you.
No, he's never afraid. Are you kidding me?
Well, if I remember, wasn't this like the end of the third quarter? Like, the game still has to go on. Like, this is
this was like a TV timeout.
Yeah, like in the middle of the game, he's just like, I gotta take care of something real quick. Do you know how crazy it is to walk off the court to go confront somebody in the middle of an NBA game? Like,
that's what makes him to
how
go.
Many dudes could
that's
do
what
that?
makes him to go.
Like,
yeah,
you don't see any role player being like, wait a second, I gotta go take care of something. That local beat reporter up there in the third row, he said something I don't like. Give me two. Like, no, you're on the bench, dude. Like,
I think that's the other thing too, right? It's like, I got no problem if a player wants to confront a reporter. Like, it's happened in the history of the industry. Like, it just is a thing. Like, one of my favorite stories Dan Patrick talks about is how him and Alex Rodriguez almost got in a fight because he ran a story that A-Rod told him he could run, and then he didn't like the way it made him sound. And they literally almost got in a fight in the Rangers locker room. But that happened in the Rangers locker room. This isn't public. So I think it's crazy to be like, yeah, I get you love your son and you want to protect him, but at the end of the day, he's a grown man too. If he has a problem with Stephen A and what he says, let him say it. Quit fighting his battles.
Yeah, and I think it comes to a point to where when you get to the NBA or even at USC, you become a public figure. And then when you're being drafted, you have to acknowledge that you're going to be open to criticism. Maybe he's criticized more than other players because he is LeBron's son. But honestly, like, I'm sure if most people that were criticized, if their dads could go, interact with the people that are criticizing them, they'd probably do it. It is a weird time to do it. But LeBron's LeBron. LeBron's going to do what he wants to do at the end of the day. I mean, he runs that organization. And it's just LeBron, dude.
And I find this is so fascinating because on top of all of this, it's not directly related to like LeBron, Stephen A getting over like into a pissing match like in the middle of a third quarter, is you have this general conversation about how the NBA is being covered and the problems with it, and how so many folks are like, all the NBA coverage is so negative. Everyone's so mean. No one's ever happy. Everyone just whines, complains. Then you have stuff like this happening where arguably not arguably, top 5 biggest sports figure currently in terms of athletics and also covering these sports, and Stephen A, a guy who gets millions of
you just got $100 million contract.
Yeah, light work, just whatever. Some small bag there, right?
He's
but you have
open
these
up
two
another school.
Huge figures colliding randomly, at this really random moment about a random topic at a really random time. Like, this is not some pregame thing where it's whatever, or like Caleb, you're talking about like the locker room. It's like, oh yeah, JJ Redick is trying to figure out fourth quarter adjustments. I need to talk to Stephen A. Smith. That is insane, and it comes at such a weird time when you have a lot of these conversations about how the league is being covered, and to see this like confrontation, also about way the sport's being covered and who's getting coverage. Bronny James, the guy who averages, I think, 2 points in the NBA, bounces between the G League, does what a lot of guys in the first and second round do that aren't starters, right? Gets more time on air than half the NBA, and the coverage of him is, oh my God, he's mid. Like, it's so interesting to have this like not even a minute long confrontation, like a little screaming match, and then of course 5-minute rebuttal, press conference comment, whatever. in the midst of all this, because you don't see this in other sports, and not like necessarily a one-on-one confrontation, but like this weirdly like self-reflection of like, how is this sport being covered? Like everyone looking at in the mirror, and then at the same time, right behind you in the mirror is LeBron James being like, "What'd you say about my son?" Huh?
Right.
Like,
It's
so weird to have this happen at this time about this topic.
And it's like I
Capital
literally
W
just,
weird.
I just thought of this as you were talking. It's like I think I'm now on LeBron's full side. This is Bronny's fault. Like, step up and say something. Like, step up to your dad and be like, "Hey, man, I'm grown man. Like, let me handle my battles." Like, I'm starting to blame Bronny.
He'll do it on his Twitch stream. Hey, you know what? If you're not watching this show, you can go to Bronny's Twitch stream.
I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna start flooding the comments and be like, "Wink if you're afraid of your dad." Like, that's what I'm gonna start doing, because that's where I just had this epiphany. I'm like, no, this ain't LeBron's fault. It's LeBron has done everything he can to help his kid get there. What the hell is going on in my house? I tell these people I'm going live, and my dad's tearing down a bottle of water. I told you I was going live at 7.
Your dad's haunting your house, bro.
This is the stuff I'm talking about. This is why I want to record as he trips over. Okay.
Oh man.
But this is where I'm at.
The ship, dude.
I'm now on LeBron's full side. I ride with LeBron James. I blame Bronny. LeBron will probably now come at me, but I'm be like, I'm a fan, so it's just gonna be this weird triangle of like, we're just gonna keep going at each other. But no, I blame Bronny. Just like step up and tell your dad, "Hey man, I got this. You don't have to try and figure this out for me. You don't have to go at a reporter. I can do it." Like that. I mean, seriously, I think if Bronny did that and told LeBron, like, "Hey, just like can I just like be?" I think this would probably be better off. But he's afraid and hasn't stood up and talked. So that, look, just thought of it, tip of the head.
Well, and I mean, and I think it is. I really think it's weird because obviously LeBron is probably used to criticism by the media, right? And it seems like his son is a very sensitive topic to him, which I think is kind of strange because this seems like something that maybe he would prep his son for, right? You're going to be, like I said, you're in the NBA. You're going to be criticized. And for him to don't talk about my effing son or keep my son's effing name out of here, Will Smith them. I think it's weird. I think it's a super weird interaction. Not that, I mean, Stephen A., he has crazy takes and he says what he thinks all the time. People love him for it. So I don't know. I think this is weird. And like you guys said, during the game, do we know if they won this game?
I have no idea.
I forget. I think they did. They've actually been kind of good.
They actually just lost to the Celtics. I think they did win this game. They just lost to the Celtics.
A big winning streak, right?
They were on a Celtics. Yeah, they were on an 8-game winning streak. They lost to the Celtics. I think LeBron's now out 1 to 2 weeks with a groin. Karma, look, streaming A, dude, like he's like a voodoo doll back there, like stabbing him. He's like,
maybe this is like his Michael Jordan thing, like, and I took it personal. Like maybe he just needed to get like personally upset about something, and he's like, okay, now I'm gonna go drop 20.
Now he's up. Now he's down 1 to 2 weeks. Like,
that
just sums up LeBron right there. Oh, I'm personally mad. You know what? I'm so mad I can't play, guys. Like, I just can't.
And I was watching some of the Celtics game, and this is a little off topic. It's so strange to me that someone as good as LeBron can be so bad at shooting free throws.
He's always been bad at free throws.
I know. It blows my mind. Like, even when you're playing, like, high school basketball, it's like if you miss a free throw, everyone's upset with you.
Yeah,
and we had
to run back in the day.
The fact that this, like, arguably the GOAT missed free throw. Like, dude, spend some time shooting free throws and stop yelling at Stephen A.
Yeah. You know what? You know what you need to do? Instead of going over to these reporters on the sidelines and being interactive, why don't you get the ball in those media timeouts and hit 5 free throws in a row? And if you don't, the whole crowd boos you. And if you do, they get like free chicken strips or something.
If he knocks 5 down, then you can go argue with Stephen A.
Yeah.
Free throw minimum.
If you make at least 5 in a row, you get to go scream at whoever you want. If you don't, you just got to go play basketball.
Yeah.
How many did Ron Artest need to do with Malice at the Palace then? If we're setting 5 free throw minimum to yell at reporter, what is fight
40
dudes?
40 4 dudes at once.
40 free throws.
Yeah.
But does this also show how bad JJ Redick like talks during his timeouts, like how bad the huddles are? LeBron's like, I don't even
winning.
need to know what's going on. Like, I don't really care what you have to say, but I'm gonna go scream at this guy, and then I come back. Just tell me what the play is.
Well, and I think for JJ Redick too. So JJ, all of his career, right, was LeBron James was also in the league.
Yeah.
How
he
weird
was
is it
retired.
to have to coach a guy now?
They also had a
Coach. I
podcast
mean,
together.
right. Like, how do you coach a guy who is like better than you have ever been? And
Not in college.
it's
JJ
like,
Redick was way better than him in
that's true.
college.
Yeah, that is true. But then to come in and have to coach this guy, I mean, obviously he's going to have a coach. I don't know how you really coach LeBron though. Like,
I don't think you do. You don't.
Yeah.
The credit
Yeah,
of him
which-
going
I
to
don't
scream at a reporter instead of standing in the huddle with the team.
Yeah, and I mean, he is really. I mean, LeBron is LeBron, but I don't know. LeBron just. I think that when you look at these like waning years of his career, it's just something that I'm not super impressed with. Just with him, kind of like this. I don't. I want to love LeBron, and I'm gonna miss him when he's gone. But then moments like this, where it's just so weird.
I think that's the biggest problem. I think with LeBron is I think there are a lot of people that are like, I like him. He's a great player. Like what he's done, like everything he's accomplished. But it's like he just does some of these things where I can't like him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what was it a couple of years ago where he was like defending China, or what was that?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
It was all over shoes. It was all over shoes.
Yeah.
Tommy
It's
LeBron. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
It's Tommy
it's
James
just, like,
actually. Like
it's weird, dude. He talks and he does weird things sometimes
yeah,
for being the face of the NBA.
Hey, he doesn't want to be the face. Get it right.
He does. Yeah, no, he doesn't. Who
wants
wants to be the face of the NBA? No, I will end on this and we'll move on to our next topic. It's tough, I think, is like he's always compared to Michael and everything he does. So when he does these things, it's like Michael never did that. He never. So it's like his good when it comes to comparing Michael did not outweigh his bad, I think. And I think that's why people view him the way they do. Like him being the all-time scorer, like at the end of the day, if people are like, oh, it's cool, but like Mike was a score, you know what I mean? So I think it's like what he does negatively in people's minds outweigh that compared to Michael. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's a tough thing. All right, so
I think
now we will move. We got to keep this show going, Trevor.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry,
but this next topic's all you because I watched 2 of the fights
and
I went to bed because this sport's too late for me.
That's fair, dude.
Like the first fight, great. I watched some of the prelims, but the first fight, that knockout was nuts.
That's one of the best knockouts you'll see in the UFC.
Yeah. So you go from that to then the second match was a snooze fest.
Boring. It was boring. Yeah, it was very boring. And that's just what you get with the UFC. So I think we'll just talk the first fight, great knockout, right? Second fight, kind of a boring fight. Third fight, finished in the first round, submission. But I really want to talk about like the main event.
That's fine. And we're talking about UFC 313 here.
313. When we have Pereira versus Ankalaev. And then I don't know how much you guys know.
I'm glad that you know how to pronounce those names because
you're way better than me. I'm flying blind right now.
Was it controversial? Because I watched a video and I don't know if the guy made it fake. Like he punched his wall and then he punched his TV after the decision.
So the thing is that Ankalaev shot probably 13 takedowns, and all of them failed. They were all stuffed. And then he is pinning Pereira to the cage and not really doing anything. But he is controlling Pereira. So then those rounds, by default, go to him. I think a lot of people had criticism of that decision because, yeah, he's controlling Pereira, but he's not really doing anything. He's trying to get this dude on the ground. And Ankalaev spent more time on his back than Pereira did. There was a takedown or whatever at the very end of one of the rounds. Pereira actually did like a Greco-Roman judo takedown. It was kind of impressive. But Pereira, this wasn't his best fight. It really wasn't. He was backing up a lot, and Joe Rogan said a lot during the fight. When Pereira's backing up, that's when he fights his worst. And we saw that with Izzy when he lost to Izzy. But I mean, it is what it is. Pereira, I don't think, was unbeatable, especially when you get guys who are good at grappling. There was a conversation with him going against John Jones, and I think this is probably the best thing that could happen to the sport because now no one wants to see Alex Pereira versus John Jones, because we just saw and then first I was saying this all night. There's nothing scarier than a white Muslim in the UFC. Those dudes are terrifying.
Was he like? He's like the guy that won is like one of the only 3 or whatever to ever win like a title or something.
Yeah. So but he comes from the same place like Habib, Islam,
my homeland,
like all
like,
those
crazy.
guys. Yeah,
those guys are nuts.
Those dudes are terrifying.
We're all crazy.
Those are the scariest dudes in the world.
Yeah, we are.
But
like,
we
step
saw...
up on us one time. This is a long-standing joke for nobody that knows anything.
We saw like Pereira. Fraud check. I don't think it's a fraud check. But I do think that we saw a mini version of what would happen if Alex Pereira did fight John Jones. Because John Jones is a guy who can do anything. He can wrestle you. He can stand up and box with you. Like he can do anything. So now the good news is no one wants to see that fight, because I think the real fight is Tom Aspinall versus John Jones for the heavyweight championship, which John Jones doesn't want to do. But now he's been backed into a corner where he either A, retires, or B, fights Tom Aspinall for the World Heavyweight Championship. So I think that's the biggest takeaway from last night. We've seen Pereira lose before. He's not unbeatable, and I think that, like I said, it's the best thing happened last night is now we don't have to watch John Jones beat Pereira in less than a round. So those are my major takeaways.
It's like I have no rebuttal. I will sit here and agree with everything that you said.
This may be my favorite thing as a guy who knows nothing about it, but gave my favorite sports cliche, which is the loser going, "The style is why I lost." That's always helpful. That's like a football team being like, they ran the ball a lot, but that's to make a lot of teams run the ball, and that's not fair. It's like, no, figure it out. Like, as a guy who again has no experience in the UFC, this could have been the most controversial style of fighting I've ever heard of. But it's like, if your go-to is the style isn't good, more people are going to do it. Maybe that's a you problem. Like, maybe you got to figure something out. If your first response after the fight is, other people are going to do it. Oh no, that's bad.
Well, the thing is that Alex Pereira is in like he's almost one-dimensional. His stand-up game is very complex, and it's a beautiful thing to watch, but that's all he has is stand-up. If you take him to the ground, there's nothing he can do, but he is good at defending takedowns. So, like I said, Ankalaev, he shot like 13 times, and they were all stuffed. Honestly, when I was watching it last night, I think that you have to decisively beat the champ to get that belt. And I don't think Ankalaev decisively beat him. I think there was and especially with that final round, it wasn't clear who won that last round. Pereira really started to tee off on him. So I think it is for the best for the sport that he did lose, and so now we don't have to watch John Jones win in 45 seconds. So
yeah, that'd be good. So the thing I'll ask is like, so what big fight is next for the UFC that like will get like more eyes? Because it's like, are these guys like A-listers that fought last night, or are they like?
So Pereira has been the dude for a while. Like he was at 185 weight class where he fought Izzy, and then he bumped up to light heavyweight, and has kind of just been running through that division. And then now he loses an Ankalaev. And again, what does Pereira do now? He's fought everyone at 215. Like, does he go up to heavyweight and then now he's in the heavyweight conversation with these other guys? Does he stay there and try to work his way back up to the belt? I think the most what's going to happen, I think, is that he's just going to get a rematch and we're going to see it again. That's not like the most interesting thing that can happen, but Ankalaev isn't the most interesting fighter. Pereira, he has the whole Amazon thing going for him where he's like the descendant of Amazon, like tribes people. So he comes out there with his war paint on and he's got the thing and he does the bow and arrow, whatever. But yeah, no, it didn't. He missed.
The ancestors did not come calling for him.
No, yeah. But so I think the big fight that's going to happen next, I don't even know if it's for sure yet, but Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria. Ilia dominated his weight class and then won the belt against Max Holloway. Max Holloway hadn't lost in like 4 years, had never been knocked out.
Yeah,
And
I
Ilya
think I
sat there
remember
and
seeing
boxed with
that
him.
fight.
Yeah, and just knocked him out. Like no one has ever done that to Max Holloway. So the weight cut for him is tough. So he was like, I've done all I can do in this weight division. I'm going to relinquish the belt. And then I think he's going to go up and fight Islam. And Islam is the pound for pound best fighter in the world right now. So, and Ilya is very close to that as well. So it's going to be really interesting. I think that's going to be the next like big one. We got Volkanovski and Diego Lopez coming up for that vacated belt that Ilya vacated. That should be a good fight. Volkanovski's getting kind of old. I know a lot of people love him, but I think Diego Lopez has that one. But that's in the future. So we'll talk about that more when that comes around. But yeah.
Perfect. I have a lot of homework to do.
You did homework?
That's not really. I was such a genius that I didn't have to do homework.
Yeah.
Just like
Someone
especially
clip that. Someone
especially
clip and save that. We need that for the
especially
future.
like the school that I went to. Like I was just like super genius. Like I rolled out of bed.
Mm.
I lived literally 5 minutes away from the high school, still do. And I like woke up at like 7:30 every morning. I was late every day.
Yeah.
I got my sister
Yeah.
in trouble my senior year because I was late every day, and I had to deal with my teacher that as long as I showed up by 8:00, I was fine. Well, my sister didn't have that deal with her teacher. So
I was
she got
good at doing my homework, the class before the homework was due.
Jerry, at our school, we didn't go to like some complex school like you did, Jerry. Like
Okay, thanks. Yeah, dude. Paint me. How else are you gonna paint me right now? You know, everything is.
You are
Okay,
this
go on.
guy that grew up in the big old city and went to this big old historic school, and that's what it is. Not everybody grew up.
Mayors, be nice to me.
Not everybody grew up that way, Jerry. Not everybody grew up with the lineage that you have and everything that you have going for you. Okay.
God, I'm getting showered over here with compliments.
Yeah,
God.
and we'll probably talk about that lineage probably a little later in the show because we have a subject that kind of correlates with that. So our next topic here, we will have Barry Bonds talking about Shohei Ohtani. So I'm going to play this. The video probably is going to be laggy, but I think the audio will be fine. So just bear with us here.
He is and what he's accomplished in his career. The game has just changed. Okay. I mean, the game is way different than it is than when I played. The same way Michael talks about it or anyone else. Ohtani is not going to hit 2 home runs without seeing one go right here. In my generation, I don't care what he does. He's not going to steal 2 bases without somebody decapitating his kneecap and slow him down because it's a different game back then. Today's game, they take batting practice all day. They take batting practice at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up. These guys hit more than I've ever seen in my entire lifetime that we didn't do. And they should be better than us as hitting wise because they can hit a home run, flip their bat up in the air, run around, get a taco, come back down, have a limo, drive them around, all these antics that we weren't allowed to do. If I did anything like that, there's no way I'm going to see a star.
Wow.
I'll see the hospital, but I ain't going to see baseball that day.
That's the unwritten stuff, though.
And so as a hitter, we had to hit in a way to where if I hit a home run, I know what's coming in next at bat or possibilities. So my thing is I have to be a little more defensive and be more of a contact hitter to get out of a problem than they can just do and hit. And sometimes I think it could be a disadvantage, but Ohtani, dude, boy can play. There's no question about who he is. My opinion, I just hope he just stays at the hitting category because his hitting ability is off the chart. Pitching, I just think might tire him out. I think he should come out of the bullpen here and there, like he has these, because he's DHing, he can come out of the bullpen and throw an inning or 2 here, and just because he's so good as a reliever too. Like he could be one of the dominant relievers and dominant starters. I think as a starter, man, I think it might get wear and tear a little bit.
All right, that was Barry Bonds on the, I think it was All the Smoke podcast, talking about Shohei Ohtani. The first thing when I watched the video, so Trevor sent the video in the group chat, and my first response was when he was like, "Oh, players, my generation." Barry, the thing that the players don't do in this generation is take steroids.
Okay, and this is like,
don't see yourself. They take batting practice all the time.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so
he wasn't putting a
you
needle in
literally
his
shot
butt
yourself. So Barry, okay, so hey kids, practicing is bad, but you know what's good? Shooting yourself up in the butt. That's what he's like. It's like the players of today's era, they should. Okay, Barry, could you imagine if you took batting practice all day and did steroids? You'd probably have 1,000 home runs.
Yeah.
That was my first response when I heard that video. I'm like, okay, the one thing that this generation doesn't do is take steroids.
Yeah, because it's illegal.
Because you ruin the game for these people. Like, I got no problem with the steroid guys. Like, some of my favorite players of all time are steroid guys. But when you're going to sit here and talk about this generation and bring in like Michael Jordan, okay, well, Michael didn't do steroids compared to like, it's like, no, you have no right to crap on this generation of players.
Well, what I'm waiting for is a baseball league that allows every player to take steroids.
We need that. Like, I would.
And just
the MLB
imagine.
We might not need a separate league. The MLB might just ratings are ratings.
Dude, the Savannah Bananas need to stop doing dances and they need to start shooting people up.
Yeah.
You got like
I
a
think so
college
too.
junior in third base doing a TikTok dance while doing
steroids.
No.
I hate, dude. I like a lot of people like love those videos. I hate them. I think I don't like. I'm not going to go.
I honestly, actually, I don't think Barry Bonds was talking about this. I think he's just talking about Savannah Bananas, and it just was never specified. I think they cut it out of the podcast, actually.
Well, and then so another thing that I think is interesting with Barry Bonds, he's like talking about how hard they had it. I've seen Barry Bonds get intentionally walked in the most insane situations, like bases loaded. We intentionally walk Barry Bonds. They're not going to throw it at your head. They didn't throw it.
Well, that's the other
right?
thing. That's how many times were balls thrown at him? Like, honestly, I want to know, because he talks about like, oh, you're hitting 2 home runs, and then it's like, oh, like then the balls like they're gonna come at me at my head. What? No, they're throwing it on the other side of your head to walk you.
Right,
because
and that's
the pitcher
what I
was also on
Barry
steroids, so he's like, hey, we're cool, dude.
They got the same guy. They get him from the same guy. They're friends.
Yeah, they all had the same doctor. I will tell you what, one of the best documentaries I've ever watched in my life. It's funny because they also use like kids to play like the athletes characters, but it's hilarious. It's about the doctor that gave steroids to Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez in Miami. That guy was a whack job. That guy went to Ecuador to get his doctor's license. Just so he could call himself a doctor, but couldn't get scrippies. But his dad was a doctor, so he still his dad's scrippies. And that's how he, like, it was like called himself like a clinic because he couldn't like say that he was a doctor's office or whatever. But you have to watch. It's one of the funniest documentaries ever, because basically what happened with Alex Rodriguez is Manny started hitting all these claims, right? Like, I think Alex Rodriguez probably started steroids in high school. Like, that's where I'm at with that. But they played the Red Sox, I think his first year or sometime when Manny was with the Red Sox and A-Rod was with the Yankees or the Rangers, and he knew Manny was on steroids after playing him in one game, so he figured out who the doctor was, and he called the guy. He's like, whatever you're giving Manny, give me that, but more. But it's just like the way that these guys thought back in the day. It's like, but for Barry to be like, oh, these guys suck and they have to take batting practice. Yeah, because they're natural players. They're not like juicing their bodies.
Right, and I think that they've probably found that it's more beneficial to have batting practice all day than do whatever else. Like, what were they doing? Like, instead of taking batting practice, that was their afternoon. Was like the coach was like, "Okay, guys, go take your steroids.
Hey, put this cream on your body, and maybe it will help you."
Well, and so he brought up another interesting thing, and then I want to see what you guys think about this. Like, Shohei coming out of the bullpen instead of being like a starting pitcher. I don't think Shohei should pitch. Yeah, okay.
I said that for a while, and me and Jerry know Eric, who I'm going to bring up, who's a professional pitcher. Jerry knows this. I to him slide and Shohei was on like the big tear, and he was like, "It's crazy," but he was like, because Eric's a pitcher, so he's like, just what you have to go through pitch. All the connection.
Oh, no.
All right, is it back?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
He's back.
But listen, I'll have a Wi-Fi booster next week.
It's okay. Yeah, we're good. Live show 1, baby.
I'll have lights.
We get one viewer and it crashes. No, but Eric was talking about how like what he has to do as a professional pitcher, and he's like, I don't know how he can professional pitch and hit at the same.
We're gonna have to pick up for Caleb at some point. This is great. Dude, the ringleader of this podcast is deciding to poop out in the middle. Oh my god, we lost him. Oh no, he's gone.
Oh,
Our graphics. What will we do?
Yeah,
He's gonna come back, and it's gonna be so funny. To the one person or two, if we've gotten that far watching, I hope you're having fun. No, but I'll take this around. We'll keep moving. It's okay. Time's fourth dimensional concept. But what's so funny to me is that Barry Bonds is such a controversial figure, right, in baseball, and he's a guy that gets a lot of sideways looks whenever you talk about him. Obviously, he's an asterisk player, multiple footnotes. At his peak, even with roided up, steroids in the butt and everything, right? One of these premier athletes and treated so specially. Oh my God, we got him back. Maybe he's returned. The prodigal son.
I'm glad to know that it still works when I'm not in here.
Yeah.
But I figured out what happened is my laptop somehow got connected to my neighbor's Wi-Fi.
Now that's real Cassopolis right there. There you go.
The houses are so close.
Me, the big city boy, and after to hear about this, I wouldn't understand this type of lifestyle where I connect to my neighbor's Wi-Fi. It's a problem I will never understand.
You would connect to a Saudi Arabian prince's Wi-Fi. You
gotta go pay my toll.
You probably have like Starlink or something.
From the future.
You probably had it before it was even a thing.
No, we cut you out, Caleb, so you had to finish your take later because now you decide to leave us for your neighbor's Wi-Fi, which that actually sounds like a really bad rom-com. But like to see Barry Bonds, a guy who he gets just so many, whoever you talk to is gonna have such a different opinion on him, to come out against, and like not against, but be like, I think the biggest star baseball seen in so long should do this. It's so weird because I haven't heard anything else from Barry Bonds about anything.
Right. Yeah, that's why I shared this, because I was like, I haven't heard Barry Bonds speak in like 20 years.
He's on a media tour.
For what?
Because he wants to get in the Hall of Fame.
He's not the veteran. His idea of going into the Hall of Fame is being like, you know what? The biggest star in baseball, probably one of the few reasons we'll watch this game. Let's change that up. Like, if we want to talk about and this is a question that I don't have the answer to because it's not my question to really answer, is what is Shohei looking for? Is he looking for individual greatness? Because if he wants to be the guy that we talk about 30, 40 years from now, he's going to do both as long as he can. Because how many times are you going to see a guy who can, even for better or worse, do this? Right. And we're talking about the physical toll. Oh, I see the money. I can't believe your graphics are working. You get on your neighbor's Wi-Fi and it starts working. This is awesome. Right. Or do you want to have this guy who is just singularly dominant and does one thing really well? Right. And is like, it's interesting to see Barry Bonds question this and talk about it, but also like it's brought an intrigue to baseball to see a guy who could do both. We're talking like Deion Sanders levels here. Right. Of somebody who's playing either both sides of the ball or different sports. Bo Jackson. Right. Maybe not complete 1As, 1Bs, but these guys haven't come around. And especially now where so many of these great players in any sport are so individually fantastic at one sport. They're great basketball athletes. They're great baseball players. They're great football players. Not just, oh my God, that guy could go play 3 sports professionally right now. To have the guy who's like, yeah, I needed to take steroids to hit a couple extra home runs, to be like, let me tell you what to do with your body.
Yeah.
I find it weird. And if that's the way he's going to get into the Hall of Fame, sure. Like all the Smoke podcast, the indirect line to the Baseball Hall of Fame, go crazy. But I haven't heard from him in years. And he's like, oh yeah, Shohei, just start hitting the dog. Don't throw.
And I think that this is like really symbolic of the old way of playing baseball versus this new age way of playing baseball. I think as we keep going, we're going to see more and more guys like Shohei, where they are good at, pitching and can be viable hitters. Like, it's not to this level. It was crazy, but I mean, like Bumgarner. I mean, he was good for maybe 10 home runs or whatever a year, but I think it's going to be more and more common to see guys like Shohei, and then people, in 10 years, people like Barry Bonds are going to sound like insane to have this old view of how baseball is played, where it's like you do one thing and then you're just a DH or whatever, or you pitch sometimes. I think that we're gonna maybe in the next 15, 20 years have 4 or 5 guys in the league who could do this. Maybe not to Shohei's level because Shohei is an exceptional hitter, but are viable options when it comes to doing this.
I need Mark McGwire to come back out in his own media tour and be like, Shohei, keep doing you. And then we have this backwards beef between the former roided guys. And I need the steroid anger as well to take over in this debate.
Yeah.
The roid rage?
Yes, I need roid rage to be talking between those two. Let's come on. You want baseball ratings to go back up. Let's bring back steroids just for debate topics with Stephen A. There you go. Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire on steroids. Stephen A. 9:30 in the morning, your TV sound is just getting blown out by 2 guys on roids. Stephen A. still just talking at normal volume because he yelled. You're welcome.
I think there's 2 things with this argument. I think Barry Bonds, and this is crazy to think because we all know it's true, but some of these guys that did steroids back in the day believe and have tried to convince us that they didn't. So in his mind, when he says, "Oh, these guys, all they do is batting practice, blah, blah, blah," he's not looking at from a view of but my generation did steroids, right? Because he's defended himself. He was clean. So that's the one argument. And I think it's so goofy, but in his mind, he believes I didn't do steroids. You know what I mean? So, and he views it so he's protecting his era, which I get what Trevor is yeah, you're protecting your era. And this is how baseball is supposed to be played. But the one main argument that would have made it not seem awkward of oh, I need to this is what he should do is just bring up every time Shohei pitches, he gets hurt. And it's that's my biggest problem with Shohei pitching. And that's why I'd want him just to be a hitter because it's you can go 60-60. Your chance of getting hurt is way less. But it feels like every time you pitch, you get hurt. And it's the graphic on the screen is he only makes $2 million, which this graphic is nuts. The fact of all these guys that don't play anymore still make more money or just right around the same amount of money. But it's just he gets hurt when he pitches. Don't have him pitch. I don't care if you give him $70 million just to be a hitter. That's fine. But I feel every time he pitches, he gets hurt. So it's I wouldn't be shocked if in July it's oh, Shohei Ohtani's out the rest of the year because he hurt his elbow. So I mean that's my biggest problem with it. But it is crazy to think that how delusional these steroid guys are. Is they talk about the league. It's I never did steroids. When it's we all know you did steroids. Barry Bonds, you went from being 185 pounds with the Pirates to then 240 pounds. And look at you now, you're skinny again. That's
right.
That's Ozempic. Different shot. Yeah. Come on.
Well,
I always thought his transition, body transition from being this scrawny guy to a 240-pound monster was evidence, the only evidence you needed.
And it's everybody was like that. Sammy Sosa was 170 pounds, 230 pounds. Mark McGwire was skinny, wanting to be massive. The only one it's you could kind of make it. The only 2 that didn't necessarily get crazy big, Manny Ramirez didn't get crazy big. He was smaller, when he played for the Indians back in the day, and then we got the Reds. He was bigger, but it wasn't oh, he's you couldn't. It was just he's grown up and he got bigger. And the other one was kind of A-Rod, right? He went from being scrawnier to big. But the Yankees.
That's some Ecuadorian steroids.
Well,
they keep you right under the radar.
They used to make fun of.
That's the test.
They used to make fun of A-Rod because he had man boobs, so that's how they knew he was on steroids.
Or whatever.
He still has it to this day. If you see A-Rod, he's still it's we know you're on steroids because you have man.
J-Lo was playing with them things, dude.
His were bigger than hers.
Dang!
You mean Michigan dad, Alex Rodriguez?
Dude, the videos of him, people trying to get videos of him getting so mad at people, it's dude, you're A-Rod. The
roid rage never truly leaves.
If I saw him, I would want to I'd want to get a picture.
Just go to Ann Arbor. There you go. Face your fears.
I've gone there. I've gone there many times. Every time I've walked in the big house, the team that I went there to cheer for lost.
Yeah, you're bad luck.
I'm
can't
like
bring that
5 and
fighting
I'm
Irish
5
spirit in
and
there.
I'm 5-0 to Michigan there.
Yeah, you're their good luck charm.
I guess I am. All right, so I was gonna do the doing a detour and then college hoops, but there's actually been some NFL news that's broken during this show. So I think we're gonna move up NFL.
Oh, yeah, there is.
Oh, whoa, God. See, I do this during work too. God, we're moving up breaking news. I'm scared.
Yeah, we are. Dun, 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 dun. Hey, Jerry, can you get us like a nice little graphic and maybe some music from somebody that works at your place?
And then I'll put that on the list of things.
Yeah.
I'll get some lights, graphics,
Yeah,
what's next.
like- What I need you to start doing is I need you to have like start funneling from your work. All right.
Yeah, because they definitely won't see it when we. Well, don't worry. All the great television has the same graphic package, so we're fine.
But I need you to go to your graphic designer and say, I need a swoop breaking news with a little music. All right. But for now, I will play my own.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Breaking news from Adam Schefter, Michigan man as well. Oh, two breaking news. This one literally just came across my phone. So I will do the Josh Allen news first and then the other one because they're both.
Yeah, I've just seen those too. Yeah.
So Josh Allen and the Bills have reached a new contract extension for 6 years, $330 million. That includes $250 million guaranteed, the largest guaranteed contract ever given to an NFL player. Allen had 4 years left on his deal, but the Bills still reward their franchise. So I would just start out with this. I think franchises that negotiate against themselves are stupid. Like the Eagles did it with Saquon Barkley, right? 2 years left on his contract or whatever it was, and they gave him this major extension. If a guy's happy enough to play with the contract he has, let's keep it.
Right.
So the Bills with Josh Allen, you already struggle to win. Now you need to add more, and you just gave away. It's like,
yeah, I mean, think about where that money could have went to help him win games.
with 4 years left on his contract.
AFC Championship games against the Chiefs. Like, I don't know.
With 4 years left on his contract.
Right.
Josh Allen, great player. He is great player.
You're phenomenal. Yeah.
Like he is. But when you negotiate against yourself, you struggle, in my opinion. Like that's basically what you did. Like, and this goes back to like the Myles Garrett stuff too. It's like these guys talk about how they want to win, but then they go and get the biggest contract, and then they complain when it's like, well, I can't get this wide receiver, I can't get this defensive end. It's like you just took I struggle with it when that, you know what I mean? It's like, but I'm also a Tom Brady guy where it's like, you take less money, we build a team. Like we're going to get famous and we're going to make more money by winning Super Bowls than playing in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other news here, DK Metcalf, who requested a trade early in the week, is being sent to the Steelers. I don't know what the Seahawks are doing. I don't.
I don't know what the Steelers are doing. This is a 2 for 2.
But it's like, I see it from the Steelers' perspective. I see that. But the Seahawks, it's like you just got a new coach last year. He's going into his second year. You trade your quarterback, and now your best wide receiver. Like, where are you going? Like, what is the
they're tanking?
plan?
This is a good old-fashioned tank.
For Arch?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, this is some type of tank for either a quarterback like an Arch Manning, which I cannot.
I don't think Arch comes out next year. So tanking for nothing.
I don't know if it's necessarily like one quarterback in the next draft class type thing, but I think the Seahawks have been on second to third base, and they want to instead strike out one time, go for a home run. And I don't know if I like it or not yet, but they've been this consistently all right team that has a couple of pieces, but never puts it together far enough, sneak around the playoffs, make the wild card a couple of years, losing the wild card, be like, what are we going to do? So they're offloading. I don't love it. They were fine. I think they were a good team, right? And it's, giving up those windows because you don't like it. Like, I don't like those vibes personally, but I get it. The Steelers, I'm like, what are you doing? You don't even know who you want to play quarterback next year.
Right.
And then you're going to give him George Pickens and DK Metcalf. You have two real weapons. But who's going to be running that offense?
There's going to be a fight for number 14.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
This is fighting.
Oh, my God.
Happen.
Yeah, dude.
Mississippi, versus Georgia.
I would love to see that fight.
Oh,
yeah, I think it'd be a good
George
fight.
Pickens.
They're
I
main
think
event UFC
I think
314.
There you
DK
go.
Metcalf. It's like you automatically think he's going to win, but I think George Pickens is a scrapper.
No, dude, George Pickens. Did you remember when he got drafted?
Yeah.
That picture that came out?
Yeah. He's like a
dude
bulldog.
can fight. That dude can fight. That's
No,
all.
probably George Pickens will bring a gun.
Yeah.
Like, this is the issue. Like, it's gonna
Yeah.
be a knife fight, and then he's gonna bring a gun.
DK's got enough body armor. I think he could deflect the first bullet.
He might be like Superman, yeah, where it just bounces off him.
Maybe he's on roids. Have we thought about this yet?
Dang it, dude.
Like, you want to bring back conversations. Like, are we sure that DK is not on roids?
I mean, you said it. I didn't.
I know I did. I did. I said it out loud with no regret. I said it again.
All of Pittsburgh is going to be in your DMs now.
Yeah, great. Me and the 300 followers I think I've accumulated through the 6 years of being in local television. Oh no.
But no, I like it. You get to this point with some of these teams where, so it's like the other news, like Devontae Adams going to the Rams. You have Cooper Kupp, who already has a rapport with Matthew Stafford. Why are you like why do you make some of these moves? Like that's like the honest thing with some of these teams. They do it to try and stay relevant or what, but it's like the Seahawks. You trade your quarterback, you trade your wide receiver. Why? The Steelers, you have no quarterback, but you have another weapon to throw to. Why? You still have no offensive line. Najee Harris is a free agent. You have bigger problems than bringing in another wide receiver
and paying him.
And then because he's going to get a new contract. Like that's
5 years, 150 million.
That's
like, not chump change.
No, but I always go back to Jimmy Johnson said it years ago. You never want to be in the middle. You either want to be the worst or you want to be the best. But you have to be bad long enough to be able to build to become the worst. They're the best. And some of these, like the Steelers, are like, they're fine with like, oh, Tomlin's never had a losing record, and we know we're going to win 9-10 games. At a certain point, you have to lose. But I think the other thing shows with this draft, I think some of these NFL teams think that like Shador is going to fall, or they can get like Jackson Dart late in the draft, or like late first, early second. So I think that they're being like, that's fine. Like, we'll give up a Geno Smith for the potential of a rookie on a rookie contract.
I wonder with them if they're okay with being bad for a year, either waiting on the other class, but knowing they could pick up other great pieces in this draft. It's okay that this draft is not a guaranteed star quarterback draft where you're looking at multiple guys. Like last year, you're like, okay, you get these guys can be very good, right? And this is a quarterback draft. You have a couple of those. Again, I'm not going into the Rolodex of next year's quarterbacks. I don't have that type of bag right now. And really, I don't know if Arch Manning's really him like that to be tanking already.
Right.
But it's weird because I worry when you do these things, when you try to throw it all away. Maybe it's not for a QB, but it's like, oh, we don't like the middle, where it's like, oh, congratulations, you threw it all away, and now you have to figure it out because it's great and all, but that's what the Bears have been doing for like 10 years. And I sit here and watch that happen because you are gambling at the same time that you know what you're doing, right? And for some of these franchises, like the Seahawks, I kind of get it. You know, like this is an organization that has developed talent throughout the years, right? Okay, I can see this. But like the Rams, they've hit on wide receiver picks. You've had Stafford. The Rams vibes, you want to talk about a weird team. That's been the weirdest offseason team. For the sole fact that their moves, like, they're like, hey, Matt, if you want to test free agency, go ahead. It's fine. We'll just sit here. We'll wait. We're not doing anything. All right. Oh, no one wants you? Fine, we'll take you back. Like, what? Like, that's weird to me. And I think that has also informed that weird offseason they're having. Is you're like, and again, Stafford's 39. I'm not acting like he's in the prime of his career. And how many more good years does he have left? No clue. Right. But if every team tries to tank at once, then like at one, you're now playing against the worst deck because you didn't like the fact that you were making the playoffs. And like that, I don't know if it's spoiled or if it's almost like this bravado of like, oh, we'll build through the draft. We'll hit. It's like, how many teams have been saying that?
Right.
Well,
How
that's the
many
thing.
teams
Is
thought
you
to
can
get into the
you can
draft?
have the picks, you can suck, and you can still be like the Browns have hit on some picks, and they're still drafting second.
Right.
Like like I said, I don't understand some of these teams, but it is what it is. All right, so we'll bring up some of these graphics that we have here. I have to remove the Shohei Ohtani graphic. I'm still figuring this out. All right, so here are some guys that have been re-signed or tagged. We know T. Higgins was tagged by the Bengals. The Bengals are in that of like, we paid the quarterback too much money, and now we can't keep anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But they go and they re-sign Mike Gesicki as a tight end for like 3 years, 25. No, you get T. Higgins done first. You get Jamar
Right.
Chase done first. You try to keep Trey Henderson first.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand some of these teams. So T. Higgins tagged by the Bengals. Trey Smith also tagged by the Chiefs, guard. You have people like Bobby Wagner still going back to the Commanders. Zach Bond, big one for Trevor there, going back to middle linebacker with the Eagles. Levante David's not retiring. Ronnie Stanley is going back to the Ravens. Saquon, like I said, you negotiated against yourself.
Right.
Like, great. He had a great year, but like whatever. And then Matthew Stafford back to the Rams after pretty much like having a love affair in Montana with Tom Brady, which then caused a fight at a Starbucks in Indianapolis between I can't say
It was
it.
Rappaport and somebody else.
Yeah, but I was gonna use another analogy to use them, and I was trying to.
You're the one who told
PG.
PG-13, so that's your fault.
It was. I will send it in the group chat, but
That's even worse. We're doing inside jokes with the podcast like one live viewer. That is insane. No, this NFL free agency has just been awkward. It is just a lot of these, like, there's been some interesting moves which we'll obviously talk about, but like a lot of these moves that I stare at this graphic are just awkward. I don't absolutely hate it, but I don't get it, or how we got there didn't make sense. It's bad dancing. It is people all on the dance floor trying to get a little bit more. Everyone's tripping over themselves. Like, I can't get over the Stafford thing. I'm not as off on the Saquon Barkley thing for the sole fact that the running back market's been completely undervalued. So like, we give a guy a record-breaking season. Oh my God, shocker! He got paid a little bit more. So that was probably the one that was like. But I also understand your point of like, why now? Like, just keep taking advantage of the fact you had him. That wasn't going to change. But I'm not reading
the other thing with the Eagles.
I just saw Trevor start laughing. I'm like, I'm not reading it yet. I'm doing it. I was a little point. It's just a lot of.
It's a great thing, but it would have got me canceled.
Okay, of course. Jesus Christ, Caleb, we're in episode 1.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, my detour is gonna get people coming in. Like, that's probably when we're gonna have floods of viewers.
Oh
but no, it's like, I don't have a problem with like certain teams doing it. Like the Eagles. If you want to pay Saquon Barkley more, they can, because their highest salary is like Jalen Hurts at like $25 million. So they have the luxury to do that. Now, the Bills, you don't have that luxury of just winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You don't. Like, it's crazy to me. All right, let's go to the guys who have been traded. Geno Smith, like we talked about. Christian Kirk, who I think is actually a very like underrated trade. He was good with the Cardinals. Then he went to the Jags. Didn't really do much. But the Texans, I think, like, they tried last year with Stephon Diggs. Didn't work out. He got hurt. I think he is a wide receiver where it's like, you don't necessarily have to force him the ball, but he's going to produce for you.
Yeah.
Joe Tooney to the Bears. I love it. I think the Bears we're going to make the playoffs next year. I'm thinking Super Bowl at this point.
The Bears are just winning the offseason. Don't get your hopes up. I love it.
We're going to
I want them to be so good, but they're winning the offseason again.
We're going to dominate, and then we're going to go to that parade and hopefully pay our parking meter in that town.
Don't worry, I got us free parking. Don't worry. Okay. We get that. We're talking about a Super Bowl parade. I can get us free parking.
Okay, that's what we need, because I can't pay them Saudi prices.
That oil money.
And then Debo going to the Commanders feels very much like Stephon Diggs going to the Texans last year, where I think some of these teams get in this mode with some of these young quarterbacks. Like, oh, we got to give them weapons, but then you have to force feed some of these wide receivers, and I think that can take away from some development. That's just my view of it, but like
I see that point. The thing I think these two, Kirk and Debo, are two very different moves, even though they are very similar, like position wise, young quarterback. As in, I have more questions for the Texans on what are you going to get out of Caleb? What are you going to get out of Stroud, CJ Stroud, after last year? Last year was at a sophomore slump. To see people start figuring him out, will he come back and be a better quarterback? Kind of that rookie, or was this a rookie year magic? And now he's more of a mid-tier quarterback after he got figured out. So like with Kirk, I have more questions out about Kirk. It's who's giving him the ball. And I think I don't blame Stephon Diggs. Yes, he got hurt. That sucks. Right. But like when he was there, he was a legitimate weapon. But CJ Stroud wasn't a top 10 quarterback last year. So it's harder for me to put a realistic value on the guys he's throwing the ball to and understand how good they were if those passes aren't getting there or they're just not they're not scoring. I really like Debo to the Commanders because why not have fun? And they didn't give up tons to get him. That's another weapon. I loved the fact with the Commanders last year, they played to their strengths. You ran the ball a lot. You're running the options sometimes for fun. You let Jaden Daniels be. He is one of those guys that I don't worry about. Oh my God, Debo Samuel didn't get the ball enough. Like, yeah, he could be a little whiny. Life goes on, but also you just got traded for like pennies on the dollar. Like you just took one to the gut. And if you want any team who likes running the ball and takes advantage of the athletes they have right now, it is Washington. That's the only other team that I feel like has truly done that outside of the 49ers, who it's like, oh, hey, guess what? We made Brock Purdy look good.
Yeah.
So I like that because it's like Jaden Daniels has just been fun. And maybe like I like the vibes of that where you're coming off of a really interesting and weird year for the Texans. And it is all based around that. And we could be having the same conversation next year, just in different terms. If Jaden Daniels fizzles out a little bit, if people start figuring him out, right? Then we might be going, oh, they got this receiver, but Jaden Daniels didn't have that moment. But like, why not capitalize on the fun? And also a guy like Debo, you can bring him out of the backfield. You can do a lot of different things. He's done it before. That's a fun weapon to have with a quarterback like Jaden Daniels. So I like that trade more than anything. And again, for what they had to give up, nothing. That's not bad. Like, I'm here for fun, if anything.
Yeah.
You're just there to hope that both teams have fun, Jerry. That's just who you are.
Exactly. You know what? You really don't want me to go down that road. I will hurt you.
It's just where you're at. I mean, it's fine. You're like Rob Lowe in the stands, just wearing the NFL shield.
Yeah, right? Just straight Under Armour. No team. There you go.
Like, come on. All right. So 2 big moves. One was done, and then so Max Crosby thought he was like the highest paid, and then Myles Garrett thought like, oh, I hate Cleveland so much, I'm gonna make a Instagram post about how I won out and how much I want to win, and then it's psych, I'm going back to the Browns. So Max Crosby signed a 3-year, over $100 million contract, $91 million guaranteed, $35.5 million a year. I like the deal because I'm one for like, if you draft a guy, homegrown talent, keep him in there if he's been great for you. It's a no-brainer of a deal for the Raiders. I think clearly the Raiders are in a point where they're like, with Pete Carroll, they're like, no, we sucked, but we're going to change the culture. We're going to win. Max Crosby's going to stay here and play. Where in the past, the Raiders in these situations with like Khalil Mack would just move on from him. This is like a culture change with like just the whole regime of the Raiders has changed where it's like, we're going to pay our guy. Myles Garrett, 4 years, $123 million guaranteed, 40-year, no trade clause. So he's screwed even if he requests another trade. He's stuck. But I mean, like, it's a premier position. I think this moves into now one guy who's now only on the trade request board right there, Trey Hendrickson. It's like, if you're the Bengals, any shot you had of potentially re-signing him, you've hurt yourself. Because out of the 3 guys, he did lead the NFL in sacks with 17.5. Now, the defense sucked, but he was still producing.
Right.
So the Raiders were the smartest team to be like, no, we need to get this deal done first, 35.5. And then the Browns are like, okay, well, now we have to get this deal done. So now the Bengals are anybody who goes after Trey Hendrickson, even if you trade for him, say you trade a first or a second round or whatever it will be, now you got paying probably $40 to $45 million a year. Like, I don't know. It's crazy to sit here and say the Raiders were smart, but the Raiders were smart.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed when I saw. I mean, great for the teams, obviously, with Max and those guys staying there. I was kind of hoping they could go to those teams that were like borderline Super Bowl contenders and really change a defense. But it's whatever. I don't think the Raiders or the Browns are going to be very good, like within the next 2 years. So we're just going to see these guys ball out on bad football teams. So.
No, I hate the Myles Garrett move. I don't get it. I really don't. Like
it's all about money. I mean,
like I get it. Get your bag. I'll never get mad at somebody for getting a bag. But like now, I really don't get the no trade clause because at least you could lie to me and say, you know what, I'm going to get my bag. I'm going to go ball out here, and then when person X gets hurt from contending team, I move there. Right? Throwing in that no trade makes no sense to me. But the Cleveland Browns franchise never makes sense. It really truly never does. And it's like, and like, I don't even like, I get why they're going to resign him. If you keep a guy like him, a generational talent like a Myles Garrett, but the vibes are terrible. Like you don't have any great plans. You're stuck with a terrible quarterback who's definitely decimating your roster because of how much you paid him. And then you're going to throw the bag at this guy and be like, all right, well, let's figure it out. No, like at this point, just go get Jameis Winston again. It'd be fun. Like, I'm going to root for both teams. I'm going to root for Jameis Winston to be back in the NFL just to throw picks for Cleveland, but at least scramble around, give us a good soundbite, and call it a day.
Yeah.
Like, I get like the fact he threw a no trade clause in, maybe to get a little bit more money, doesn't make sense to me because at some point we're going to go through the same damn argument with Myles Garrett again of like, he's not happy, they're not building around him, and it's like, you screwed yourself. And like, you are too good to just be like, all right, I want to be good on a mid team. And especially historically mid-team. It's not like this is some hometown, oh, I want to rebuild. No, you're talking that talk about how you hate the city. Like, There's nothing here that makes me seem like, at least with Max Crosby, I can go like, you know what? He's embraced being a Raider. He wants to be a bad boy. He wants to kind of bring back that old school Raider energy. I respect that. It's annoying, but like, yeah. But like, what is Myles Garrett has done nothing to reflect the city of Cleveland nor given it any love. Like, oh yeah, I love it here. Like, no. And so I really don't get it. And it's frustrating because then we're going to have to sit here and be like, all right, Myles Garrett's doing great. What's new? Like, they're 3-12.
Yeah,
Yay.
exactly.
I think it's like, this is like, I think it's just where Cleveland is. I think at a certain point, it's like, as a city, but as sports wise, it's like, they get something, they get heartbroken, but they're so desperate that they'll accept it back, right? Like LeBron leaves for Miami and then is like, I hate the city. The owner's like a racist, like just like says all these bad things. 4 years later comes back and it's like everything's great, but you're so desperate that like anything that ever happened, they'll bring back. Deshaun Watson, you're so desperate. You'll give up so much for him coming off of just the issues that he had mentally and not playing for a year. With Myles Garrett, he requests a trade. He craps on the city, basically says this franchise will never do anything. And then it's like, well, we're not going to trade him. Well, why would you not? It's like you're being stuck in that middle phase again. But then it's like, we're so desperate. We will give him stuff that we know he's not going to be happy here. We know he's going to hate it, but we're so desperate to keep him and to not move on from him that we're going to do something that like, it's nuts.
Well, and again, no trade clause, you give him no way to get out of it and take future advantage. If you're like, right now, we know we're going to stink. Again, we're stuck with Deshaun Watson. There's nothing we could do for a couple years. You can't turn his value. Like, he will continue to be such a high valued player that you are not going to move from unless he removes that clause, which is also doable. We could be having this whole thing about, oh, this and that.
Yeah,
you could just be like,
easily doable.
Oh, great. The Lions want me because Aiden Hutchinson went down again. Bye. Like, that could literally just be like that. You know, no trade clause has been broke before. But I just don't like, I wouldn't even want to say it's the whole city of Cleveland because like the Cavs are good right now too. So I don't really want to be on that BS, but like the Browns they're just clinging on to something there. When you have this massive anchor behind you, acting like it's not weighing you down. Like you have to, let's not forget you have this terrible contract that will screw you over. But it's like, all right, but we got Myles Garrett. We won 2 more games. That's 5. Now we're picking 5th. Like that's the thing that's driving me nuts is they're not acting like there's this massive anchor behind them that's keeping them from being bad, like from keeping them from being good.
Well, I think the other thing too is you have this is such a crazy way to think about it, but it is a business, and these are people's jobs that make these decisions, right? Like you have Kevin Stefanski as a coach, who 2 years ago wins Coach of the Year. Joe Flacco's his quarterback; he makes it to playoffs. This year, they are awful. They don't do anything. So now there's pressure on the coach and GM to be like, we don't have time to rebuild. We have to make some decisions that are nuts. And Myles Garrett wants out, but having him on our team is better than not having him on our team. So we're willing to do anything possible to keep him here with no direction it's just you have these people that you get these mindsets of like, instead of what should be done, they do what they have to do to keep their job.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that you know, like you guys said, you pay this guy all this money, and like, where do you go now? Like, how do you improve your team now? You can't pay anybody else, really. You know, you can't pay another. And like I was saying, maybe we got spoiled last year with. I mean, I know free agency is just kind of getting started, but we got spoiled last year with all these people going to a bunch of different places or whatever. But it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me for Myles Garrett to go back, and I thought it was almost a done deal of him not returning. So it surprises me. I don't think the Browns are that much better with a good edge rusher. I think they haven't solved any issues.
But I think the other problem, and this is crazy, but the other problem is, could you have traded him? Because you have the second pick. Could you have traded him knowing that the Titans may or may not take a quarterback, and you're sitting there at 2, where you have this prospect in Abdul Carter, who I watched play against Notre Dame with one arm and destroyed us. Why would you not move Myles Garrett to get as much as you can for him, a la a first, 2 firsts, 3 firsts, a first and a second, whatever it is, to help build the rest of your team, and then get Abdul Carter, who's younger and cheaper?
Yeah. Yep.
Like,
and doesn't hate the city of Cleveland.
Right. It's just
No,
Cleveland
right?
Browns doing Cleveland Brown things. This has just been the organization forever.
Yeah, but it's like Myles Garrett's a great player, right? Great player. Arguably the best defensive player in football.
Yeah.
But will he add that much more value than a rookie Abdul Carter? And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer, but you're telling me I could get at least 2 other picks, which would be 2 other players. To then, it's I don't know. It's just the way I think about it. Look, I'm just a guy that sits in my parents' basement and talks about this stuff and doesn't have a job. But it's like, I think I could do it better than most. Give me a team for a month and I could make a Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I've played enough Madden franchise. I know what I'm doing. All right. So here are some notable free agents. Some of these guys, Aaron Jones plucked. He goes back to the Vikings. I think the one thing that this showed, looking through these free agents, and DK Metcalf was available, and so is Devontae Adams, but no longer is. The wide receiver market's pretty strong. With these veteran guys who could definitely come in and help, like Keenan Allen, you have Chris Godwin. Stephon Diggs coming off the ACL probably won't play until maybe later in the year. But if you're like if you're like the Chiefs, why not? Amari Cooper, who I think is still a really good player. I think very underrated in his career. So that market's strong. I think the biggest domino is Sam Darnold. Like, he lost probably hundreds of millions of dollars, or at least probably $100 million the last month of the year. And the Vikings are like, we're probably not going to bring him back unless we can get him for like $15 million. I wouldn't bring him back, but that's me. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Like, do the Seahawks go after him? Do the Steelers go after him? The Raiders were talked as a possibility. Well, Pete Carroll knows Geno Smith, so he's like, I'm going to take Geno Smith. So I think what happens with him will be very interesting. And then I think the other dominoes of like Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Aaron Rodgers, if he even plays or he stays in that cave and does what he does. It's just like, I think he's the biggest domino. But I think it's just the veteran guys, I think, in my opinion, that could come in and really help a team like a Khalil Mack. Like Hassan Reddick didn't play last year for the Jets other than like 1 or 2 games. But bringing him in, A Josh Sweat who had a really good Super Bowl, like pass rushers. Like it's an interesting free agency class. It's nothing crazy, I would say, but it is like there is value to help a team. But you have to start with some of these dominoes, and they've happened just while we've been doing the show. So
Yeah.
it's just interesting.
No, like this, I think that you have a lot of pieces that have to be exact fits. And that's what makes this class so interesting is like you could throw a lot of these guys in a lot of spots, but it's not guaranteed success, right? Like Keenan Allen could, let's say, resign for the Bears and not be successful again.
Yep.
Like, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't like, the all-pro receiver. But if you put him in a certain spot, he might be great. But there's a lot of risk reward. That value you have to know what you're going for, because it's, one, not tons of stars, but two, it's not a lot of, you don't have a lot of like raw talent of guys of like, oh, we could develop him into this or that. No, you know what you're getting. And it's either you're going to have to be able to use it right, or you're probably going to be overpaying. I find the wide receiver market fascinating because at the same time, wide receivers coming out of the draft in the last couple of years has been so strong that you look at all these guys on the screen and you can also go, oh my God, so many teams have great wide receivers, and you can go in this draft right now and probably pick up 4 or 5 guys that will at this stage of their career will match that. And that's insane. It's just that's been the way football has been moving. So you have these guys that 7 years ago you could win a Super Bowl with. Now you're like, maybe they can go to the Chiefs. But it feels like a class that you have to know what you're getting into. It's a lot of risk, but it could be a lot of reward. But you're not going to mold somebody. You're not molding Sam Darnold. You're not molding Keenan Allen. You're not molding Chris Godwin. You know what you're getting with Chris Godwin. You know what you're getting with Keenan. If you could fit them in, they could be great. But you have to be able to disseminate like what do you need and does this person fit? And that's part of the fun part of the puzzle, which we're going to give Caleb 1 month to do. Congratulations, you're now the GM of the Bears.
I could figure it out.
You see, even I love you so much, I wouldn't make you take over the Browns.
I could fix the Browns in 3 seconds. Move the team.
Wait, did Deshaun Watson just show up on this graphic?
I could fix the Browns. I would walk in, and I'd walk in with a paintball gun, and if you had paint on you when I walked out of the building, you'd be out. Has anybody watched Entourage? Ari Gold, he did that.
It feels weirdly Squid Games.
I've wanted
you
to
step forward
that.
when I say your name, you're out.
I think I would be a very good candidate for what's that George Clooney movie where he just like goes and fires people for businesses? I think I could do that.
Yeah, I think that might be your calling.
Like, I think that it's like, okay, we have to fire this amount of employees. You have to tell them this, give them their severance package, and
I've heard there's a government department that's looking for people to do that.
I don't want to be a part of
free.
I was gonna say, I don't want to anything. There's your calling.
I'm trying to get private sector where I know there's guaranteed money.
Yeah.
But no, it's like.
Did you say you would move the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, that's what happened in '95, and look what happened to their franchise, the Ravens.
Vancouver.
I'd take him to St. Louis, Jerry's town.
I'll take him.
Yeah,
there's
Dome needs some work.
There's already a dome there. There's a fan base.
High crime rate.
I like that. It's perfect. It's just like Cleveland.
Yeah, perfect. It's just a much better city.
Except I think the food's better. I've never been to either of those places, but
no Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. No distraction.
One has an arch.
Hall of Fame.
One has an arch.
Oh,
that's it. Yeah, instead of the insane.
And we'll be so bad that we'll have Arch Manning as our
Arch squared. Arch Manning in St. Louis watching Arch Madness. This is where you transition to college basketball. You're welcome, Caleb.
Yeah, we will. I will save my doing a detour presented by Michelin Tire. No, I'm just kidding. I'll save that for live. Yeah, so we'll move into college hoops, Jerry. That's a great segue. You act like you do this for a living, segueing topics. So, Jerry, I think the biggest thing is looking, and I'm going to defect to you because I'm going to bring up the SEC because it just means more, and that's where you went to school. I mean, you
still pay
said
for
that.
it.
You said that all the time. It's the SEC. It just means more. Like
that's it.
We care more. Looking into conference tournament week now that it's kind of starting. This is a very interesting question. If I had Jay Billis on a hotline, I would ask him this. Does the winner of the SEC tournament, does it hurt their chances or does it help their chances in the big dance? Because of how tough the conference has been. Like, it's great that you would win the conference tournament, but would you beat yourself up enough to where it would hurt you?
You know, that's the $1 million question, which is why we don't get paid to do this. But I think this year I have a weird feeling that the SEC has already beat themselves up enough. The winner of the SEC tournament is going to have its own, that's going to be its own beautiful thing, is to just get through to get through this year with the high amount of talent that every round at every stage, right? I think that it's, in a way, even if you get hurt in the tournament long term, that's something that people are going to remember, partially because it's just been such a weird year for the SEC in terms of basketball, not just how deep it is and all the, major narratives, right? But yeah, you're going to have so many teams in the big dance, it doesn't even matter. And to walk away from that, unless you get a major injury, right? Because I am still very high on Auburn, even after that loss last night. Or a team like Alabama, right? They have their weaknesses. So I don't know exactly. It's hard. It's you don't have this problem often. So it's almost in a way I think there's so much bragging rights in its own right in a year where SEC football has been oh no, is it slipping? Oh no, isn't that? The SEC basketball will be fine, we'll just become SEC football. It will do the same thing. There will be so much on the line that I think teams will care, even if it hurts their tournament chances. Now, God forbid if a guy like Broom goes down, years go down. Okay, now this question's mute. The whole thing's void, right? But there's almost too many bragging rights because of how good it's been, that I don't think teams are going to sit it out. And for a lot of these middle teams, think of a Florida, you're trying to keep a 1 seed.
Yeah.
So yeah, you might have to play an extra game. You might pick up a cramp or a knock. But if that gives you a 1 seed and a little bit of an easier tourney run, that's definitely worth it, right? Even if that extra game there means you're playing a 16 seed that you can maybe get a little bit of rest in, and then maybe an 8, or you get a more favorable 8 seed, 9 seed matchup in that second round. Or for a lot of these middle pack teams, it's, can you move to a 5 spot, to a 4 spot? So I think it's absolutely worth it, even with the battle scars, because that positioning is going to be so valuable. And I think because it's just been such a weird year with how good the SEC was in the early parts of the year, that there are a lot of good teams that are going to be in the tournament lower season they probably should be, because the numbers are going to tell you otherwise. You have this just number anomaly within the SEC that's going to cause good Big Ten teams to slide, good ACC teams to slide, your mid-majors to slide. So that seeding, by winning a game or two, may be so helpful, even if you pick up a knock, if you are a little bit more banged up. So I think it's worth it. And plus, again, bragging rights never hurt. It has been a lot of fun this year. You could throw up so many teams in the SEC against anybody you want. You go, oh God, I don't know. And that's the beautiful part about this. But it's also March. Chaos ensues. I'm more fascinated with the Big Ten.
I think that's interesting, because it kind of feels like this year it's the SEC kind of feels like what historically the Big Ten is, where it's they have so many teams that are good that it's do they fizzle out in the tournament? That's usually the Big Ten knock, right? It's they'll get 10 in the tournament, but the farthest any team goes is the Elite Eight, and that's one team. So I think that will be interesting, because it's yeah, I think as of right now, I wrote it down. Auburn, Florida, Houston, Duke are projected 1 seeds. To me, Florida's not a 1 seed watching them. That's just me. But the Big Ten's interesting. Michigan State, I thought they were going to be good at the beginning of the year. People kind of knocked them down. But I do agree that I think we do better as underdogs coming in than last year, where we were viewed as the team that should win it all. But the Big Ten is Michigan. Watching Michigan, I've watched Michigan a bunch this year. They have 2 7-footers and can't grab a rebound. That's a problem. Wisconsin is good, but it feels like if they're off, they're screwed. Maryland's good, but they're not really deep. So, the Big Ten is very interesting, I think, because some of the other conferences, Houston was far better than the Big 12. Far better. Duke kind of ran away with the ACC, right? They demolished teams. And then you have SC beat up on each other a little bit. Big Ten, where it's some of the teams you thought were good, are they really that good? But this week could change it all, right? team like Michigan could go win the Big Ten tournament. It's like, oh, they're good again.
I found the Big Ten so weird this year that I feel like I'm watching an inverse of the sport, not just because of like the narrative shift of, oh, SEC teams deep, will they actually make the runs? Physicality.
Yeah.
Before or early in the show, I don't know, because whenever the live started, we were talking about I was in Bloomington to watch IU Ohio State with a buddy of mine who went to Indiana. And I was getting so frustrated at the lack of the amount of times Indiana screened air. And I've never felt like that was a Big Ten problem, where you have that's usually the physical game is you go up north, you're going into the Breslin Center, you go into Assembly Hall, you go to Urbana-Champaign, and you got to fight. Like, I think of a Matt Painter Purdue squad as a team that will beat the hell out of you. And physically this year, it doesn't feel like it's there. And I'd argue the SEC is the exact opposite, where it's like every game feels like a fight. Guys are going down. You are scrapping for boards. You're talking about Michigan that can't rebound, but Michigan's not boxing out. They're not hitting people.
Yeah.
Not, Mouse at the Palace hitting people. Michigan knows that well. But, like, it's that type.
Well, I mean,
like,
when you have a coach that's like 2'0" and has a squeaky voice like Michigan, you're not going to be tough.
like, the only team that's really impressed me, not to just, light up your own horn and toot you a little bit more, Caleb, has been Michigan State's physicality. They're one of the few teams that I feel like will actually hit somebody and
January,
go for those
February
rebounds.
But
they like those little things that they're aggressive on the ball and all those small things. And that's what I'm going to be very curious about when it comes to tournament time. For both the Big Ten and the SEC is like the physical knocks are one thing, but how will these games be reffed? Because in the SEC,
yeah, I mean, that's interesting.
Bonus insanity because both these teams are banging into each other, knocking back and forth. Where like we were done the first half of IU Ohio State in like an hour, and that's a CBS broadcast with CBS breaks and CBS bumps. You guys know how that goes, right? So like the fact that game was moving, like that's what I'm curious about. Will the physicality of the SEC this year with help or hurt? And it's not like, oh, I'm gonna be like big ref conspiracy. I hate that type of stuff. It's annoying. But like you have a lot of teams that have played such a physical brand of basketball all season. Will that benefit in the tournament or will it hurt? And not just in the injury sense, because we're talking play styles. Mizzou's a perfect example. They hit you. They're a bunch of 6'7" guys that run around and smack. Like, will that help or hurt when they go up against whoever, right? Who's not doing that. And then they're in the double bonus. So that's, I think, the big college basketball question. Chaos will ensue. Trying to predict the chaos is no fun. It just hurts.
Does since you like kind of have some Duke lineage, I kind of brought it up a little bit earlier. Does Cooper Flagg deserve to be the player of the year?
No, that's okay. It's not. Janai Broom should be. It's really weird because like my hot take in college basketball almost every year is the ACC is the best conference in America because every year in the tournament they show up.
Yeah.
And the other conferences kind of poop the bed. It's hard for me to make that argument this year. Because usually you would have a team like a Florida State with Hamilton, who's now leaving, right? Who would just have these really long, lanky, annoying teams. Think of your old school Syracuse 2-3 that would just find ways to pluck people and people can figure out to pass the ball to a middle of a zone. Shocker. Or a Pitt would sneak by and just be annoying. Louisville, now in the ACC, still weird, would have a good team. But like you would always have those sneaky teams that have these great basketball lineages that could just show up and beat you and have talent. This year's not the same. Like, and that's okay. It's a down year. Like even in Miami, team that was in the Final Four or title game, if not close, 2 years ago under Larinaga. Now Larinaга's gone. So like you don't have that weird ACC team, maybe Clemson, but it's gonna be like a 3 or 4 bid league, and that's not normal. You're not going to have that 11 seed ACC guy or an NC State. There you go. Last year that got beat up in the ACC because it's weirdly talented, has all that basketball lineage right across the coast. Unless you count Cal, I don't know. God,
that's a historic ACC power.
Hey,
I don't know why you're sitting here like
ACC All Coast Conference.
The Atlantic Coast Conference is proud to have Cal and Stanford in it.
Okay. And SMU also on a known coast or Gulf. So,
is it? Who knows? That's political. I don't get political on the show. You talk sports.
I said the Gulf.
Speaking of NC State, they just fired their coach. I think like today.
Very wild.
The other thing that with the ACC that bothers me, and this is because of the big 4 letters, is there like North Carolina played Duke yesterday, and they're like, oh, is North Carolina in? And it's like, if you watch North Carolina play basketball against a good team, they are god awful. They do not deserve to be in the tournament. But they could be the team that goes in the ACC tournament and they win the whole thing and they go on a run.
Well, it's been frustrating with the ACC is that you still have teams that have 4 or 5-star talent. Like that's the unsung part about what's been so weird this year is like North Carolina is still a top half ACC team because they have star players. Hubert Davis just hasn't been a great coach this year, and that's okay. He hasn't figured out his talent. You know, RJ Davis has been there like 14 years, right? They'll be fine. They'll bounce back, but like they could make that type of run because you just have a bunch of guys who are good at ball. You still have a top 5 recruiting class playing on the floor. You know, you have guys who can take over. They took over the part of that game in Chapel Hill. Like, it's not like they can have those spurts. They haven't been able to figure out how to put it together. But yeah, and that's where the ACC's always shined in the tournament is you have these very talented teams that kind of sneak, slumber, you know, sleep their way through, and then boom, they come out and they squeeze you. I don't know if that's going to be the case this year. I can argue that'll probably be the Big 12. Big 12 will probably do something like that with like a Baylor. It'll be like, oh my God, we forgot Baylor's actually good and they have a title-winning coach. Oh no, look at that. Jeremy Roach just hit a big 3. Like that'll probably happen. Houston will probably lose in like the Elite 8, and everyone's like, how that happened. That's part of the fun. But the Big 12 feels more like the ACC usually does. But it's just going to be so weird to see the SEC be so well represented. And I think those conference. Well, it's not just football conference. The first half of the season metrics were just so it was such an anomaly. To first have the scheduling foresight and not like they've totally planned it, but to have a lot of these major matchups featuring SEC opponents in your preseason, your early season games. That's one thing that those cards don't always fall that way. And to win a majority of them, for Mizzou to beat Kansas when Kansas is still ranked 1 after they played 8 teams that they played like Delta State and Chicago State, and they show up and beat Kansas as number 1, that inflated the hell out of these numbers. Now, that might be like, oh my God, SEC super overrated, but like that doesn't happen. I don't know. I can't think of a time when a conference has both had the scheduling in their first half of the season be competitive enough to get this type of numbers and then dominate through it, which is then set this tone between the actual SEC season that is like, this is the end all be all. And so I'm so fascinated to see how that plays out because what did you say earlier about Michigan State? January, February, Izzo?
Yeah.
Right?
Greatness.
These are not the same teams that are playing in October, November.
It's greatness.
So what does that look like? What does it look like when we actually get to the big game?
Where's the Final Four?
San Antonio this year.
Yeah, I'll be there because my team will be playing.
I thought you were going to go say hi to Wemby. Ask him how he was doing.
His blood clot?
Yeah, you know. I know you're a caring guy, Caleb. I thought you were going to see how
you went to Ecuador to get your doctorate or whatever.
I did, but I run a clinic, okay? I don't have a guy to steal Scrippies from, okay? Okay, so last question. We'll wrap up college basketball, and then we'll move on to doing a detour presented by Yokohama Tire.
Yeah.
Who wins the SEC tournament then?
I'm still high on Auburn. They are just they feel like the fullest team. Taj Pettiford's a lot of fun. Jai Broom is just been so good. The one thing that will hurt them is whenever they go down, their body language is terrible. Because they've been so dominant.
They also have that one guy that like tries to fight everybody and gets kicked out of games.
It's not a bad thing. You need that.
It is when it like hurts you. He got kicked out of the tournament game.
As long as it's not fans, it's okay.
The thing is, they're just so deep, and they have all year been very consistent. And even on their off nights, they find a way to be close. And I think that speaks volumes. Like I think the only time they got kind of blown out this year is maybe that Florida game, earlier in January, right? So if you're telling me a fellow currently number 1 seed, probably more of a 2 seed, right, is your only major loss in terms of like 10 plus points, I think you're doing pretty good. I could see them doing it just because they're the deepest and well-rounded. It's hard for me to think about Bama because they're so dependent on shooting that this happens to Bama every year is they start really hot. They have a couple games where they just kill you from 3. And it's like, oh my God, it's 93-60. And then they just brick every single shot. And then they get knocked out. That happens like every year. So it's hard for me to put them there. Your dark horse would probably be like an Ole Miss who just finds a way. They have that white point guard who's pretty good.
Well, I have my pick, and it's not Ole Miss.
They're my fun team because Florida's like the 2 seed, so they're not dark horse. Mizzou's not coming in at a good time. Kentucky's still Kentucky. I'm trying to think who else. Mississippi
Trevor,
State.
who do you think's going to win?
I like Auburn.
Okay.
I watched Auburn play the other day, and yeah, I think they probably have the best shot.
I'm going with the Tennessee Volunteers.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Zakai Ziegler is him.
I think that
him and Barnes are 1 and 2.
I think that they'll win the SEC tournament and then not do anything in the tournament.
I can see them doing the opposite.
No, they're going to go crazy for the SEC.
Zakai Ziegler is one of those guys that I could see like in this type of tournament, you're playing a bunch of guys you already know, you've already beat. Like you run to an opponent, you beat. Oh, they fall down because that's what the thing with Tennessee is. They just fall down at weird times. So I can see him falling down in the tournament, but then with his back against the wall, you have a star. And that's where a team like Auburn becomes so painful and tough to beat is, oh my God, we're up 3 with 2 minutes. Okay, we know the guy we're giving the ball to.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help when you know who you're playing against. Like when you've played these teams 2 or 3 times a year, when you go into the tournament, that's where your legends are made, right? That's where your Denzel Valentine shows up. That is for Duke recently. Jeremy Roach was, the star, the guy who hit the big 3. So guys Ziegler can do that. That's why I like them deeper in March. But the SEC tournament, I think Auburn's been the most complete.
It's going to start, Jerry. I'm telling you, it's going to start, and he's going to go on a nice little run. Okay.
All right. I'll keep noted.
He's going to Kemba Walker. Okay.
Can't wait till
I can't wait till next Sunday. Can't wait till next Sunday when we do this show after Selection Sunday, and I'm sitting here and I'll wear orange because Tennessee dominated.
Bird orange is disgusting. So
all right, moving into the last topic. Here, this show's way longer than I wanted it to be, but this is the first one, so we'll figure that out. Jerry's a producer and tells people to rap for a living, and look at us now.
I like the sound of my own voice.
Yeah, this is what happens when you take people that were behind the scenes and put them in front of it, and look what happens. It's a mess. So doing a detour here. This is for people that know how my brain works. This is like flabbergasted me since I saw it or seen it when I was at the gym. So I go to the gym yesterday. I'm working out. I do like a workout classes. I just don't go to a gym and like do free flow like I do the thing where you do classes an hour. It's like an hour. So you start on like the treadmill, then you do like rowing, and then you go on the weight floor. And before I walked into the class, I like noticed something. I'm like, is it not? I yesterday saw my first fake butt BBL in person.
I was wondering what this is going to be about.
All right, which tire company are you shouting out after this? Come on.
Goodyear this time.
I can't believe you told us to the 10 to 15-year-old audience that Trevor brings as you're talking about BBL.
No, so
come on.
So hopefully Trevor shows us during his classes tomorrow.
Oh my God.
Show.
No, I promise you, most of our viewers will be of that 10 to 15-year-old.
Perfect.
They're going to find this, and they go on my Facebook like every other day. They're like, I saw this on your Facebook.
Great.
And then
share this when this is over. Share it.
Yeah.
No, so it's just how my brain works. And you guys know me. My brain is, I've been thinking about it. I like literally, I saw it and I'm like, well, that butt doesn't match those thighs. So that was like my first indication that it was fake. And then like the girl had like a crop top on, and I could have swore I saw a scar. So I'm like, lipo, you took it from there. And you put it there. And I just like, when I got out, I was flabbergasted. And it was one of those things where it's like, I wasn't looking because I like was looking at it to be like, wow. I just was like, this is my first time seeing this in person. And in like our area, that's like, yeah, like fake lips or breasts or whatever, normal. A BBL, never seen it. Other than
that Saudi money. That's
probably
in Chicago. Yeah.
But I was just
Soul Road.
I was like, I couldn't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like I called people when I got out of the gym, and I was like, "Guess what?
You
I
won't
just saw?
believe this.
I just saw my first fake butt."
Yeah, there's
In
gonna be
person.
some type of list if this is the things you call people about. Like, hey, long time no talk. I want to talk about this thing I saw at the gym. It was a butt, fake one to be
It was
exact.
fake.
Have you guys ever seen one? Have you guys ever seen one
Dude,
I don't go
in
on my
I
person?
way.
don't know, bro.
In person?
Like the point of it being fake is that it's supposed to like look like a normal butt.
But it's like if the butt doesn't match the thighs, you know it's fake.
I get that. I don't think I have.
I don't think I have either, nor am I really like.
Is
Nor am
that
I
like
putting
your
in the
4-leaf
energy to
clover?
be like, okay, so are we matching thigh, butt?
It
Are we
it,
doing
it was
cuts? Like,
it was just you could not unsee it.
I see. I do understand what you're saying though. With the thighs not matching the butt, I can envision that,
Like
and I can see how that could be a good topic.
but it was like it wasn't that it was like, and I get the whole point is like to try and like to make it look natural, but it was just like you could just it was just just like you couldn't explain it. You had to be there to see it. But it was just one of those things where I was like, you just couldn't unsee it. I couldn't unthink it. I've thought about it since I left the class. Where
Was she in your class?
Yeah, no, she was in my class.
How old is this woman?
Young.
oh my
Okay.
god, this is getting worse.
She didn't even give herself a chance.
No, she probably
She was
like,
working out and she was like, "This is taking too long."
yeah.
Fake
But
butt.
I was like, I'll probably get kicked out of this gym now. Like this is probably gonna happen this way.
Yeah.
But it was just you just couldn't unsee it. And my brain, the way that it is, was like, I just saw that for the first time in person.
Where's the second nearest gym for you? Since you're in the raging metropolis of
Actually,
Cassopolis?
there is a gym in Cass. Actually,
There's one. Is that
There's
the one you
one?
were at?
no. I go.
Okay.
I go to the fancy city of Granger and work out.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's that Saudi money, boy.
Why are you surprised now?
No, I'm not surprised about seeing fake body parts, but a fake BBL surprised in our area.
The Granger, I thought you were in the VOC.
No,
and
that's
there was
natural
fake
up here,
butt.
Trevor.
Yeah.
That's natural. Nobody gets a BBL in this town.
No.
But I
in Granger.
it was something I wrapped my. Have you guys Seinfeld, Cosmo Kramer? You guys ever seen the Ass Man episode?
Oh my
Mm-mm.
God.
Have you never? You have to look it up. So Kramer goes to the DMV to get his license plate, and he opens it up, and it's Ass Man. And he looks at the lady, and he's like, "This is not my license plate." She goes, "What's your name?" He goes, "Cosmo Kramer." And she goes, types it in, "You're Cosmo Kramer, the Ass Man." So am I now the Ass Man? Because I
You
can tell if
are.
it's real or fake.
I mean, you can check. You can put your name in here however you want. So this is
Yeah, next Sunday.
you have the power here.
It was just like I said, it's just the way my brain thinks. It was like it's like I just saw something go
Man,
wild.
but with butts.
What?
Like Rain Man, but with butts.
Yeah, like I just it was one of those things that like I just as soon as I saw it, I'm like, fake. You ain't fooling nobody, sister.
It's like when they drop the toothpicks and he's like, "There's 142."
Yeah.
You're like that, but it's like that's fake butt, fake butt.
I could tell. It was just the way my brain think. I couldn't stop thinking about like I just saw that for the first time.
Thank God we saved this for an hour and 48 in. So like our one viewer is like, okay, you're telling me you would have put this in the middle.
I would have. It was called
We're going
doing
to talk
the
about
deep.
UCF and steroids and then BBL right after.
I think it worked.
I
It
see
worked.
the vision a little bit. Like,
It works.
Yeah.
You would have went from steroids to fake butt,
oh my
fake
God.
numbers,
They
fake
did.
butt.
Yeah.
No, I just thought I was like, I've never seen this before in my life. Wow.
I'm glad.
I don't
I'm
live in
glad that
I don't
you
live
did
in
that.
LA where it's like that's
Yeah,
just
or St.
normal.
Louis.
Yeah, is it?
I don't know if people in St. Louis have enough money to do these things.
Wait till them Saudis get some of those streets.
But that's just how
You'll
my
see 'em
brain.
then.
I was like, we have to talk about this because that's just how my brain operates.
I'm
Please
glad.
don't tell me
we
you put
did.
that on a piece of paper that was what you're going to talk about.
I do actually have notes
For
about it.
everything
I
that's
do.
holy, I don't want to see the piece of paper that says
I
I
do
saw a
have notes.
BBL in the gym. Shred and
I-
burn that paper.
I literally wrote on this paper, I saw my first fake butt / BBL.
I wonder when that lady got the BBL, if she would have realized the domino effect that she was going to have, where you saw her butt, then you made notes about seeing her butt, and then you made a podcast segment around her butt.
I journaled it down. Butt didn't match the thighs. That it's like,
dear diary.
Look,
today I saw a fake butt.
It works for Adam Schefter. He's like written his whole life for like the last 30 years. Maybe that's what I should start doing.
Yeah.
There you go. It starts with a BBL.
But no, I did. That was like I was like, whoa. First time, boom. Saw
right there. Yeah.
Looked
right
at
there
it
for you.
in the flesh.
It looked at you, dude.
Sorry.
But no, that's just how my brain operates. All right, that's gonna do it for this first live version of the show. Like I said, we're gonna try to do this every Sunday around 6 or 7. It's gonna be way shorter. This was the first one. We kind of just started talking and rambling, and we'll get better at that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's just something to do for fun. I appreciate Trevor and Jerry wanting to do this. Not taking life seriously, just kind of want to talk sports, go do a detour every once in a while, presented by Yokohama Tire.
Have we stopped at Yokohama? I thought we were rotating. Come on.
I could do
tire sponsorship.
I could do Pirelli tires.
There we go.
You know a lot of tires.
Bridgestone.
I think our next segment for doing a detour should just be you naming all the tire brands that you can think of.
I think I can get pretty good. So Goodyear. I'll do it right now. Goodyear.
This episode was too long. Proceeds to name every tire brand you can think of.
Yokohama. Bridgestone. Pirelli. Michelin. I think Cooper's one.
Shout out to Ghostbusters.
Yeah, that's 6. I don't know anybody else that can do that.
That's farther than I can go, dude.
Yeah,
I don't own a tire shop. I've never worked in automotive, but I just know. I have a weird brain that operates in a different way.
Thinks about BBLs and tires. You really are.
They kind of go together. They're both plump.
Oh my god.
All right, that's going to do it for this first show. Thanks for watching.